Yeah, so my talk's on feature management, and because we're all in software and building features, it's all about managing your features what you're building. One of the two things, I run two .NET groups, one in York, one in Sheffield. So if anybody's around there when we kind of get out of this virus period, then feel free to say hi. And I can't get to the next slide for some reason. That's just boring stuff about me. So to start off with features, because we want to manage our features, we got to have a way to kind of toggle them on and off. And a lot of people talk about features of like just as feature toggles to kind of toggle them on and off. And all this is kind of just a simple if statement of saying, is this feature on and off? And then we do something different if that feature is on. So that's simply what a feature toggle is. There's loads of different terms for feature toggling, or what people call it, what a feature toggle is, but that's pretty much the simple term of it. But there's lots of things what can be classified as feature toggles, and we kind of create them into like 4 distinct types. The first one is a release toggle. So a lot of people use these to kind of just keep fastly producing features without breaking a CI build. So if you've got a feature what you're building and you don't want to have a long-lived branch, you can keep committing it to master behind a toggle. And every time you check in, you can deploy that straight to live because you know that's not going to fail. And this creates it so we have like a nice continuous integration pipeline where all our testers continue to run. And if we know our feature is breaking anything, even if it's hidden, we've got that kind of ability to kind of fix that quickly and get back into kind of a mainstream branch. The second one is experimental toggles, and this is for more A/B testing. And kind of we do this for kind of change the conversion, well, try to alter the conversion rate on our kind of websites. But there's lots of different ways to do A/B testing, maybe for like kind of testing kind of how people interact with your website or your app. But we can use feature toggles to turn these different kind of experiments on and off as well. One of the ones is ARPS toggles, and these are kind of to kind of turn features on and off depending on different metrics. So maybe the CPU goes over like 80%. We want to turn like maybe video streaming off on Zoom to stop using so much CPU. Or we might want to compress our videos less or something else like that. And we kind of use, I think BBC uses these quite a lot to kind of change kind of what they show on their main pages. So if there's an error rate of a certain percentage, they switch over kind of what they're showing to the users to direct traffic somewhere else. And then the last one is permission-based toggling. So if you're a preview user or a beta user on a website, we might give you different permissions or views of that actual site to actually see what's going off. So we kind of like turn these features on and off. So they either are enabled or disabled, but sometimes we need some filtering based on them. And these are kind of can be time-based filters. So maybe we have like a feature which is turned on while 915 while people are in the office, and then we turn it off while people are out of the office. And this might be because we don't want to support that feature outside of like a 915 period, or we maybe kind of like downscale the web servers at that point. We also can use like random selection, and this is good for like A/B testing. And as I said, we can use based on different metrics as well. But you're probably thinking, why do I need a library to kind of deal with all these scenarios? It's pretty much just an if statement. I can do if the CPU is over 80%, do X. If it's below, do Y. So it's quite simple, really. But one of the things is we need is snapshots. And this is, say we've got a person hitting our API, well, an application hitting an API, and we evaluate a feature, we call it feature 1. And if the feature 1 is enabled, we do some extra processing. And if it's disabled, we just do the normal processing, what we did before. But the extra processing has the normal process on the end of it, and that might evaluate feature 1 again. So feature 1 in this scenario, if we've gone down the enabled route, we should probably go to the enabled route again and do processing 2, the new processing 2. But if it's disabled, we probably don't want to kind of go to new processing 2, if that makes sense. So when we evaluate a feature path, we always want to go down the same feature. So we want to take a snapshot of where that feature was evaluated at that given time. And always when we evaluate if feature 1 is enabled or disabled, we just always take the same path. The other scenario is in sessions. So this is more for like websites or kind of an app what you're creating. And if you hit like a page on a website and maybe we show the user in a certain form if you've got a feature enabled, we evaluate that feature and just pass it back to the user. And if the user, if we click on a user to edit them, we might end up with like evaluating the feature again to show different content. And for this, when we want this user experience to kind of give the same kind of features all the way down the line. So when we hit like a dashboard of users, we don't want to show them like the feature turned off when we go to edit them. So we need to kind of like to keep track of sessions of a given feature when it was evaluated at that given time. So this is where kind of the new framework called feature management came into play. I think it was about over a year ago maybe now. And I've been kind of following it since like the preview version 1, and I think it's got released recently in the last 2 months, I guess, as version 2. And this is built on the .NET configuration, so all the new .NET cool stuff. So that means we can build it based on any configuration tools. So we can use environment variables, command line arguments, files and directories, or just like objects just in memory to kind of set our settings, or just on setting files. And it's also built on the .NET standard, so we can actually use it literally anywhere. So on the North full fat framework, .NET Core, Mono, Xamarin, etc. So anything that supports .NET standard, we can just use it on. And you're probably asking, how are we going to use it? And we use it exactly the same as we use most things in .NET now. So we go to our service collection and say, add feature management. And the next thing we do is just inject it into one of our constructors of our class. So if you want to kind of evaluate a feature every single time, we use feature management, but there's also another interface called feature management snapshot. And that'll create a snapshot of the feature when we actually evaluate it once. And then to use it, we do pretty much the same if statement to what we did before and say, is the feature enabled? And we pass it like a string of which feature we want to evaluate. So in this instance, we're checking the feature manager if Funcl is enabled, and we're going to make things a bit more fun if Funcl is enabled. So this is kind of how we set our settings up. So because it's baked into kind of all the configuration stuff, this is using the app settings, but this can pull from Azure app configuration or any other kind of configuration provider. So this is we set in the feature management block inside of app settings and setting the fun colors to true. So it's quite simple. And if you want to do some kind of conditional filtering on it, we can also do it enabled for as a block instead. And then we pass it a block of like kind of configuration, which tells us which filter to use. So this is using the Microsoft.Percentage filter. And then it also, that percentage filter has some parameters, and this has a value of 50. So that means it's going to give us 50-50% split of every single time we evaluate Funcl is on or off. And what makes a good framework library as well is that it's quite extensible. So by default, it has an empty session manager. And if you want to build your session management of features on top of, I don't know, blob storage or something, we can just do that by implementing the iSession manager and pushing that in. Also, if you want to extend the features, so by default, there's 2 features. One, a time-based window, so we can use like time slots of 9 or 5. And then one's a percentage-based filter where it says 50% or 90% of users get this feature turned on and off. But we can extend them into anything we want. So if we want to create a cookie-based filter, so if you hit a website with a certain cookie, with a certain value, we get to turn it on and off as well. And also, if you don't want to use a normal.NET standard configuration, you can just build your own if you want. So you can just load files from disk by just implementing the iFeature settings provider and build your own, really. Also, there's another package built on top of the Microsoft Feature Management called ASP.NET Core package. And this gives you a lot of abilities to kind of plug on top of the default kind of way of using the if statement and make it more based around ASP.NET Core. So like everything in the MVC world, we have attributes where we can add them to a controller. So we can say, enable this controller when we've got a beta user feature enabled. And exactly the same thing as if we want to evaluate it on a action as well, we can just put FeatureGate on there. There's also tag helpers. So for tag helper, we just wrap a block of Razor in a feature block, and we just give it a name of what feature to evaluate. And every single time we hit this page, it'll evaluate that feature. And if it's there, it'll actually render that header, and if it's not, it won't render it. We can do feature-based routing as well. So we can, every time we add a route, we can do for feature, and we just pass in this parameter here, which evaluates which feature it's for. And if it's not there, we just disables it. Same as Middleware as well. So we're saying use the welcome page if they're a beta user. Also, you can take control of what happens when a feature is disabled within ASP.NET Core. So when we add it to our container using this add feature management, we also can call this method of use disable feature handler. And this is where we get a callback of what we want to kind of give back to the user or kind of return to the user when a feature is disabled. So this will just return a content result where the contents you're not beta user go away at the 403. So I've got 5 minutes left, which is quite good, so I can give a good demo. So to start off with, I've created this little noddy app, which bounces a car up and down. So this is just an ASP.NET Core console app. I meant a .NET Core console app, sorry. And it's got a car bouncing up and down. And we have a feature, all it does is evaluate a feature further down the line if this phone call is turned on or not. So in our app settings, we can just go to here and just turn phone calls on. And it'll just change it automatically to phone calls are being on. You can also change it back to saying they're off. And because it's all baked on top of the ASP.NET configuration, the .NET Core configuration stuff, we get automatic reloads because we've changed that file. We can also plug in the percentage-based filter as well. So this one is going to, every time we evaluate the phone callers, 50% of the time we're going to write it with phone calls and 50% of the time we're not. So if you save that, we'll see half of it's got phone calls and half of it's not, because 50% of it's like evaluating as true and false, which is probably not as what we want it to do. Every time you want to go to this app, you either want phone calls to be turned on or turned off, not every time it's writing half a line. So to deal with that scenario, this is where snapshotting comes into play. So at the moment, we're using just iFeature Manager. If you turn this to be a iFeature Manager snapshot into the constructor and reevaluate this again, we'll get phone calls turned off in that scenario. Or if we run it another time, we should get it turned on eventually. And this time, it's always evaluated to be true as well. So that's how kind of this, once that feature's been evaluated once, we get the same result every single time for that evaluation of that feature. So the next, I've got another demo as well. So the next demo is actually on the ASP.NET Core stuff. And this is using the same stuff of what I showed. So we've got these feature gates on things. We've got beta user feature gates. We've also got a members controller with member user. I've also created a cookie-based filter, feature filter, which pretty much just gets a certain cookie with a cookie name. And if it's a certain value of set, then it actually returns a feature being on and off based on that cookie. So this is then plugged into the configuration. So we have a beta user, which is just based on the kind of just a standard true and false value. But then we've got a member user, which is based on our cookie feature. And then we've got 2 parameters to that, which says we have a cookie name, which is member, and a value, which is 1. So if we got a cookie which has a name of member with a value of 1, then this feature's got member user is turned on. If not, it's turned to false. So this is running over here. And if I drag my window over here, so this is the site. We've got beta user turned on. So we've got some beta user stuff. Come back. So I've got this cookie over here, and if I've got a member cookie. If I change this to be a value of 1 and save that cookie and refresh the page, we'll notice we've got a new tab at the top, which is based on the Razor tag helper. We click that, we've also gone to a route where we say you have the member cookie. But if we take that out, that member cookie to be something else, not put 1 in there, and refresh this page, we'll get the handler which says your beta user go away, but the message is a bit incorrect. And then if you go back to here, we'll have the actual member section disappeared as well. And I think just in time, I've got like 1 minute left. So that's pretty much just using the this filter. And this filter is more generic enough so we can actually extend it and basically turn different features on and off based on a cookie. But that's it. That's the end of my talk. Thanks for listening.